Welcome everyone. Today's episode 12 of the life of Charles Schmidt. Charles, thank you one more time.
Thank you.
Welcome for being here. Today we will be talking about the hidden struggles. Believe it or not, people with money actually has struggles, and today you're gonna find out what Charles' struggles are. Charles, again, this is a very interesting chapter, episode of your life, of your lifestyle. We're going to start and take off by asking the golden question, I think, which is, what is one of your biggest struggles?
Well, I've had time to think about it since we've been sitting up here, but my biggest struggle is trying to explain to myself what I'm trying to do. In other words, I'm trying to help students learn something because I've had so many mentors all my life teach me things, and I've learned from all the good experiences and the bad experiences. And if I tell somebody, if I indicate great generosity and give charities or causes or students or anybody a whole lot of money out of my generosity to get them to believe that I don't have any ulterior perverted motives. I've been accused of all kinds of stuff, and it's unfair. So my biggest struggle right now, I think, is one of them is just getting people to believe that I'm not trying to fleece them, or I'm not trying to molest their children, or I'm just trying to make a genuine contribution to the world. That's a real struggle for me to get people that I have, good motives as opposed to other motives.
Charles, that's great to hear, and also sad at the same time because, you seem to prove that you have great intentions to help others, but unfortunately, those intentions are not well received by other people. Can you tell me whether or not you have any kind of health struggles?
Of course. I have the health struggles. I have the problem of old age. Things just...
Well, listen, I think you're very fit to be 84, and I think that the struggle of old age it's not too noticeable on your end. Do you actually have any kind of wellness routine?
Sure. I smoked for 20 years of my life from age 20 to 40. I think that's affecting me. I have some issues where I get congestion in my lungs. I have other issues. It's a steady thing that just seems to be getting a little bit worse, and it's inevitable, and to some people it happens, sooner than others. I think that I have held up very well considering some people who haven't made it to my age.
And that's exactly my point. What is the secret? Are you doing any kind of wellness routine, exercising, nutrition-wise? What are you doing?
I would like to say yes, and I recommend exercise, but the answer is no. And but the secret to me feeling so much better this year than last year is all mental. The mental part controls the bodily functions, and if you don't feel right mentally, like if I've got a whole lot of stress like this, being president of this building and worrying about my sister and worrying about other stuff, that almost put me in the grave last year. And it's my own fault because I didn't understand it, but it is what it is.
Do you have any kind of practices that will keep you grounded, to reduce this stress, to basically keep up with your health and everything? What kind of practices do you have? Or what's the secret sauce, in other words?
First of all, I can't sleep at night. So I end up watching TV. I have an automatic timer on my TV that shuts off at 30 minutes or an hour, and then I go back to sleep, and then I wake up again an hour. And when a lot of the time I spend watching YouTube videos. I just love watching old guys, tell them just like what we're doing here. Just this identical stuff, like Warren Buffett. Everybody thinks, oh, geez, the joy of my life is making money. I want a whole lot of money for myself. That's it. No, Warren Buffett lives in the same house for the last 50 years. Warren Buffett doesn't want to be remembered for his money or wants to be remembered for being a teacher. He taught people to live and be happy. And they tell him, well, don't drink Diet Cokes and don't eat so much candy and stuff like that. And he says, well, here I am, 94. But this is where I am.
And spoiler alert, you are 84, but you're actually active, or way more active than me. You're looking forward to
that.
Well, based on what I've learned from you, you're looking forward to every weekend, and I'm not judging, by the way, but I'm just saying you're looking forward to every weekend to go to parties and stuff. So you're a 84-year-old person who likes to party, who enjoys going to parties. But let me ask you, how do you stay away from all the attention from all those parties? I also see that, people are kind of like behind you in a way for the money. So how can you relax from that kind of attention of people?
Well, I understand it much better now. I don't, I love people are the most important part of my life. In other words, I don't need some big mansion or big boat or big, whatever. I need just enough to get by on and enough money that I can share and make a difference in the lives of others. That's what I want.
Now, in terms of family, though, given your age at this point, like I said, you're 84, but you look and you act like way younger. Do you feel closer or do you feel distant from your family?
Say I feel about the same. I've never had a real close relationship divorce took a toll on me. I liked being married. I just was not a good husband and I was not a good father, but I liked being married and I liked having a partner. But we had different motivations, and instead of working it out, we let the outside influences get involved, and quite frequently, lawyers make the situation much worse. In other words, if you don't have a lot of, we lived pretty well, but you get outside influences in your life that you're going to get a lot of bad advice, and lawyers, their motivation is conflict.
They don't want to lose a case.
Right? The conflict. In other words, the more conflict there is, the more they make.
The better they look. That being said, in addition to your late passing wife, and you have mentioned that you like to spend a lot of time with friends, you like to see people coming to your house. Has there ever been a time where you feel completely alone?
No. You know why? Because I don't need to have physical people with me all the time. I can watch them on television. I can watch Ken Langone. I can watch Warren Buffett. I can watch Bill Gates. I can watch history. Like, I watched this guy, Christian Bale, an actor, on a TV program yesterday morning. He's doing something for foster kids out in Arizona. There's some genuine good people like Ashley Brown with the selfless love. There's so many good people. No, I'm not alone. If people aren't with me physically, I never feel alone.
And I'm sure you're going to be like Ashley Brown at some point, because now we have to be telling people about the Old Child's Foundation. And I'm sure that you're going to create an amazing impact to a lot of the youth, and that they will be aware of who you are. And, you know,
I am not trying to attract attention to myself. I'm just trying to attract attention to a message. I mean, I really don't care if they remember my name or anything. I mean, I am kind of embarrassed about my name because of things that are said of me. I know I shouldn't. I should be able to overcome that, but I am sensitive to that, and I have to live with it. So I choose to live with, just get the message out there and don't focus on me or, you know.
And following up on that, what is something small but life-changing that you have added to your day-to-day for mental health? Besides watching YouTube videos, of course.
I should be a commercial for YouTube. Sure, cool. What do I do life-changing? Well, I have had a struggle with alcoholism for all my life, and I gave it up for 11 years, and then I got back on it after my wife died, and then I had to go to rehab, which was $70,000 for a month, and I stayed off of it for 6-8 months, and but now I physically, it's not possible for me to drink anywhere near. The most I will drink of vodka is 1.5 ounces at a time. I used to drink 6 ounces at a time or more.
I'm telling you, you're not just a regular 84-year-old person. And, you know, speaking of that, how you ever felt like you couldn't talk about these kind of struggles before to anyone? You know, today you're talking about how your drinking habits, your smoking habits, and even your YouTube addiction. But how you ever feel like that? How you ever feel like you're not able to talk to anyone or just anyone about
No,
stuff?
I don't. See, I don't try to hide anything. Like, I want kids to be working on this stuff long after I'm gone. There is no pictures or no anything perverted in any of my video files or cameras or tape recordings or anything that I've ever done that's perverted. I mean, I've been, as far as my integrity goes, I've been dishonest at times, which I'm ashamed of, and I've paid the penalty for it. And I try to tell these kids that I talk to, whatever you do, tell me the truth. Don't make it up, because if it comes back to you, you're going to lose the relationship.
We just talked about you not being a good parent, your alcoholism, your smoking habits, but then you also
gambling too. Gambling.
Yeah, and gambling. Okay, that I didn't know. But then you also, we also talk about this new guy. In other words, that is trying to leave a footprint.
Yeah, that is a new image, and it is a struggle getting people to. I guess I portray the old image.
But here you are trying to leave a footprint on this planet about education, about giving what you can and everything. But I'm sure that there has been a little change in the process. And that being said, have you ever been accused of forgetting where you come from?
I think so. Yeah, I had real good friend of mine, after Gene died, and I'm driving around, quote, the family Bentley, and some girl says to me, what are you trying to prove? You know, who do you think you are? That's a little bit ostentatious. Why don't you drive a regular car? So, in other words, until the last few years of my life, I've always drove, well, I don't want to be judged by my car or my material possessions or anything. Yes, they think I'm trying to portray an image that's not me, or that I'm not real. In other words, for example, my friend Ashley Brown, who I am so impressed with. Somebody says, well, if she's running a charity, well, how come she's driving a Rolls Royce? She must be taking money out of the charity, putting it in her pocket. How come she's got that $35,000 handbag? Well, let me tell you something. She happened to marry a very rich, generous guy who was very much in love with her, who's given her all this stuff. She's not taking the money out of it, but she's got to overcome that. In other words, just because she helps foster children doesn't mean she has to be like a pauper herself, you know.
And using the example of Ashley, do you believe that wealth has affected your sense of self-worth?
Yeah, I think I feel a whole lot better. You know, I have it. If other people choose to believe that I have ulterior motives, that's up to them. You know, everybody wants to throw rocks at something, and that's what the news is, a story about scandal and fraud and deceit and corruption. But outside of that, there's some really good people trying to do some really good stuff.
It's amazing. Charles, you shared that you live in a very comfy and small apartment, and a lot of times you're actually by yourself, and you know the loneliness and stuff. But then also you talk about your health. Do you struggle with any sudden emotions like anxiety, depression?
Yeah. No, I get. If I'm accused of something, you know, I get inside very defensive, and I write it all down, get on my computer, and make a video of it and stuff like that. And then I look at it the next day, and I probably shouldn't have said that. And you know, what do I get all uptight about that stuff for? You know, I have to live with my own truth, and I'm comfortable with my own truth. And so if somebody else has got something that they think is true or factual or whatever, whether it is or whether it isn't, it shouldn't affect me, because, you know, I would be able to accomplish more if there wasn't, you know, so much skepticism out there. But it's a handicap for me, and it's a handicap for the recipient, the children. I can't help the children because somebody in the school said something, and the school wants to keep the children away from me, so I can't teach them. So that's frustrating.
Have you ever thought about getting any kind of therapy for this?
I think talking to my friend, talking to you, that's all the therapy I need. Like I remember my wife took me to a marriage counselor one time, and I didn't want to go, because I thought that, you know, they'd just say, well, that's interesting, and yeah, you should be nice to each other and come back next week. And so I went, and then this was 50 years ago or something. Then he says, that'll be $25. So I pulled out the $25 and I gave it to him. And then I told my wife on the way out, I said, look, that guy only charged $25. He must not be any good, he should be. And, all he did is tell me to give me a hug, and I didn't want him to hug me, and I told me to come back, and I went, and I'm not going back. So that's my one time at therapy. I've never been to a psychiatrist, official psychiatrist before.
You talked about all these things where people are accusing you of things, where you're feeling lonely, where you're feeling kind of like bad in a way because of the way people sees you. But what does peace of mind means to you, and how do you protect that?
Well, I think that I am responsible for my own peace of mind, and if I let myself get aggravated, that's on me. Getting back to the health issue, another thing, old age, can't hear so well. I think I'm deaf in one ear. And, I miss out on a lot of conversations. And the people who have hearing aids tell me that, well, they're listening to all the conversations at the next table, the table over there, and I think I'm sometimes better off not being able to hear. Maybe it's an asset. And a lot of times people aren't in. The great thing about these cameras are you can talk to the camera. You can,
and they'll talk back to you, which is amazing, right? Charles, what part of your emotional journey do you think will surprise people the most?
You know what? I don't think they think about my emotional journey. I think they're busy thinking about their own emotional journeys.
Well, I don't know about that, because I've seen you out there. You're a very amazing sociable person. You're always talking to other people. You're always concerned about how other people are doing. You're always caring about other people. And I'm sure that these people have noticed that from you. And I'm sure that they have some type of connection back to you in a way that they may not be concerned about your emotional journey and your emotional feelings, but they probably care about your emotional journey.
Well, they invite me to parties. And I'm genuinely interested. Rarely do I ever sit down next to somebody that I don't think is interesting. I think everybody is interesting in some way or another. And I guess it's automatic if they're not interesting, if they're just want to talk about all the problems in Washington, D.C., or all the places they're going on vacation, stuff like that, that's not of particular interest to me, and I'll go talk to somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely. Charles, in this video we have talked a lot about your past, your current life situations, your current emotions. But if you could whisper one truth to your past self during your darkest moment, what would that be?
Pay attention. Be aware. Your first decision is not always right. Just pay attention. Don't just go off on, pay attention to the feelings of other people. What do they have on their mind? So I had a guy in the stock brokerage business that sat next to me. And I thought the guy was stupid. I mean, he never talked to his customers. And he would just sit there like this and look at them. And they'd talk. And they'd talk themselves into buying 100 shares of General Motors or something like that. And he'd say, yeah, that's a good idea. That's all. And so the smartest thing he did was to keep his mouth shut. Me, I'd be talking all the time, and I'd either get the customer confused or just like this guy in his video telling me all the stuff he's going to do for me. And I'm not listening because I'm not on the same page with him.
Charles, the last question for today. This episode went quick, but what does healing look like for you now, and how do you define richness today?
Well, I'm just delighted that I got another day. I'm just real happy today. I feel real good. I wake up feeling good, and just the communication with you gets my day started. Good. I've gotten a chance to talk to somebody, express myself, and get feedback on where my thinking might be not quite correct. So, and I appreciate that.
I am so glad to hear that from you, and so glad to know that I'm in peace for your morning. Charles, for all the fellows out there who are watching this video, who are struggling with something, what would you tell them?
I'd say, well, there's a cliche, it's always darkest before the dawn. And I've had times in my life, I even had one time after my divorce that I'm seriously considering suicide. And so that was a real struggle, and life did get better. Life didn't really get better until Gene Taylor came along and showed me, a lot of love, affection, respect, and I gave the same thing in return, and it just happened to result in a whole lot of money.
That's great. But in this case, if I'm just a normal human being, what can I take from you to be out of struggles, or at least feel better?
You can take from me hope, because and you can watch Langone, who's got $8 billion now or something like that, whose father was a plumber and whose mother worked in a cafeteria. So he didn't have any money to start with. He was a caddy on a golf course. And some guys that treat him real nasty, and some guys, so he learned a lot through life experiences. And just because you don't have any money or any education or any background doesn't mean that things can't get much better. If you believe they can get better. If you don't think they can get better, they won't.
Well, Charles, thank you for always sharing your thoughts, your advices, your story, your life. Everyone, stay tuned for the next video. Enjoy this one, and we'll see you on the next one.
Hope you learned something.
Yep.